So we're going to move on to Emmanuel, your remarks, and if we could ask you to keep it to about 15 minutes, that'd be great. Okay.
Rebonsoir, vous êtes des survivants. Alors, félicitations de rester si tard.
Thanks for staying so late. I'd like to congratulate those who are still here. I'm sure we can. We're all looking forward to going home and having a glass of wine. I'm very, very proud to represent the members like the ones we represent at CAPE. The ECs really embody the analytical brain of the government. The TRs are the bilingual face of Canada. And in terms of Library of Parliament analysts, well, they're in the shadows. They're a small group, but they do essential work to support our MPs in their analysis before they make decisions in the Commons, the House, the Senate, and in committees. Over the past 2 years, I've travelled across the country at least twice, and I've met members across the country. And for me, really, that's something really which has given me incredible energy. It's given me a deep desire to promote your interests, to defend your interests, and really to move forward.
Article in The Citizen this morning. I wish Union News could make the headlines a little more positively. And as much as I want to assume my part of the responsibility for this crisis, I also want us to be able to all collectively learn a few lessons in ethical behavior and in whether sometimes inadequate rules always must be followed, even when everybody agrees they don't make sense. So just as Doran said during the debate, I think we need to be acknowledging what we can and cannot change. So obviously we haven't been, during this process, able to change an existing rule. But we have a great chance to do this in the year that's ahead of us. And I want to be there helping the Constitution and Bylaws Committee steer this process forward and bring all your perspectives into play. I think I could do that quite well. So many people have asked me, why the hell are you still staying? You've been attacked left, right, and center. You've been demonized. You've been attacked by people inside. You've been backstabbed badly. Why don't you just walk away? Why the hell would you put up with that? The reason is simple. It might look like I'm full of myself, but I actually am not, I don't think, pretentious in any way. I think I'm pretty down to earth. I actually think that I'm the right person to bring this association forward, and I'm the right person, the right leader for CAPE at this juncture in our history. Je souhaite vous rappeler que
I'd just like to remind you that, as our friend Donald said earlier, the strength is strength in numbers. And strength is essential. Really, strength is everything in our game, in our business. It doesn't mean that that we're all going to be in the streets demonstrating. No, strength is not just exerted through activism, traditional 70s style activism. And I've been portrayed as a rabble-rouser, as if that was the only thing I wanted. I just wanted to see everybody on strike, the TRs, the ECs, everyone. No, that's not it at all. But CAPE has been a union, elitist and bureaucratic union for far too long, a union that wasn't really interested in making RANDs members. It wasn't really interested in creating locals and departments where we have 800 ECs who for 8 years were not represented at all. It's a union that never tried to break through the wall the wall of central agencies where ECs represent 30, 40, 50, 60% of staff sometimes. No local representation in those central agencies. People have criticized the fact that we decided to create a defense fund. They criticize the fact that we haven't yet adapted our terms of reference. That's coming, of course, or at least I hope. My intention is to do this by the end of November. I think the NEC will be very, very long in November. They fail to understand that people were affected by RFAs in 2015. And my manager told me, no problem, you won't be affected in the 90s. Your pay grade was not affected. But all of a sudden, they turned around and they said, well, the number of members was going down. A requirement for service was going up, and all of a sudden we found ourselves in a financial deficit, and we were all wondering what we could do. We were asked to pay higher dues. I'm not at all against paying more in dues. $48 is peanuts after all. But the reason they were doing this was because they hadn't planned for the future. They didn't see the attacks coming, basically. And therefore, they required us to catch up. And this all happened at the same time as the National Office renewing a lease for the National Office for the next 10 years at a cost of more than $900,000 a year. And that came out of your union dues. And today, I'm having to live with that 10-year contract, 10-year lease. I'm not really criticizing the past, but at the time there wasn't really a mechanism for consultation and interaction with our members. We still haven't got to the ideal, the sweet spot, but we've made huge strides forward. The AGM today, at least, even at this time of night, there are twice as many of us here as the AGM where I made my speech to announce I was running. It's not a lot, but it's a sign. The poll of members that we undertook in 2015, when 40% of people responded to the poll, is pretty good.
To say that if I just abandon now, or if members choose to remove me, and of course I will respect any democratic decision, but I'm afraid that CAPE will go back to being the passive business union that it once was, and a union that no one sees or hears about in the workplace except where local leaders have pushed to get involved. Because there are strong locals, and in those places, it could continue to function. But in those places where there's no local involvement right now, it would just dwindle. Over the last 2 years, we've consulted the membership in several occasions. I mentioned it. So on the strike preparedness, and we've been accused of this survey that we conducted not to be scientific, and actually we never claimed it to be. We thought that we needed to know from the members where they were at, and as I think. I'm losing track, but I think I did mention in my president's report, there is a way more nuanced composition of the membership. We have a very broad variety of opinions represented in the union. It's interesting because in the context of the complaints, I was chastised for having pushed for running a survey of the membership about bargaining priorities. And I pushed real hard for one topic to be put on the agenda, and this was based on the consultations that I had gone throughout the country to the members, and this pertained to the fact that under 10 years of conservative rules, we had lost the ability to provide real fearless advice. And it was important to bring that on the bargaining table. And some people on the bargaining team were saying, we know what the members want. We don't need to survey them anymore. And Why would we care? I'd never heard my members say that this mattered to them. So why ask the question? Well, believe it or not, after sick leave and short-term disability, this thing around the fearless advice clause was the highest priority for members who expressed themselves in that survey. The voice of the members actually matter. Les attaques incessantes dans les médias sociaux.
Ongoing attacks in the social media have been very hard on me. One of the current candidates who was the author of many of those attacks, I'm very lucky to have a very thick skin. I'd like to thank my parents. I do it very often for having given me confidence. You know what you've done. You know what you haven't done. Act based on your conscience. It protected me against many attacks. I was compared to Stalin, to Hitler, to Big Brother, to Mike Duffy, and even to Donald Trump recently. That's quite fun. I would like to tell you that throughout this crisis, this process, I've seen myself as more like Hillary Clinton, not because I embody the establishment like she does. I'm more like Bernie Sanders. He most like me, but just like her, all my action have been interpreted, have been exaggerated, have been condemned without discussion. I was told that I was corrupt, that I had given money to my friends. That's what was presented as the truth. Last week, with the defeat of Hillary Clinton in the American election, well, there's one thing that I felt sure of. Women leaders who are strong and effective will always face expectations which are much higher than those for their male colleagues. They're seen as a threat, not only for men, but also for women as well. So this evening, I'm asking you not to put me through the same fate as Hillary last week. The best reason for this is that the work that I've done over the past 2 years, well, those who are not my enemies will all tell you that it's always been done in the best interests of members, with diligence, with passion, with energy, and with openness of mind. Since I've been president, I have never stopped focusing on the importance of taking stock of what members want and passing this on to the employer through union management meetings. I would encourage those democratic and effective locals to consult members on the issues that you face in your department or agency, and local leaders will be given questionnaires to send out to their members before the union management meetings. Our meetings, our local meetings, well, in the past it was an information dump. Now it's really a place of exchange of ideas and best practices. The vote for my revocation was on the basis of a petition that was signed by 100 people. Now, I would ask you to reject this way of doing things, but I would ask you to focus on the interests of the members, and uniquely on the interests of members. I think that the program I was elected on really meets our needs as a responsible, engaged union that really takes the engagement of members seriously.
If those who oppose me wish to propose a new vision for our union, by all means. I invite them to do so during next year's general election. I'll be happy to debate, and I'll be happy to debate with them in an environment imbued with mutual respect and where the emphasis is on ideas, not on insults. I'm convinced you support my vision, and you will try to encourage your colleagues, your friends, your members to keep us going on this very great and promising progressive path. Merci. Je remercie tout le monde, les interprètes.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone, the interpreters, Kathleen, the technicians, because perhaps at the end we might not have time to do that. I'd just like to say that CAPE received legal advice stating that if there were fewer than 100 signatures on a petition asking for my impeachment, that this petition would not be valid. I don't know if any of you have perhaps signed this petition. You might be now prepared to withdraw your signature. Well, I don't know, but that's part of the options as well.
Merci. Okay. So we're going to go to your questions and comments. I'm going to ask you to respect the following rules. Again, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, okay? To make a comment or your question. The idea, though, is to allow as many people as possible. So I'm not going to let you ask 42 questions, all right? It could be a comment and a question, for example. Comments, okay, comments. I'm going to ask you to limit yourself to 3 minutes, okay? Now, I don't know if the timer can be projected in the front because people are all facing this way. And again, okay, great. The idea is just to give as many people an opportunity as possible, okay? And I trust that that you'll respect that 3 minute limit. And again, let's just try to hold the space together of professionalism and respect, all right? And Emmanuel, we're good. Let's hear from everyone first.
I'm not responding.
And then, at the very end, if you want to make a few comments at the very end. Okay, sounds good. So over to you, Miss.
Thank you very much. I've known Emmanuel for over 10 years.
Sir, could you just remind us of your name?
Sorry, Mia Mweli, Global Affairs Canada. First as a colleague, then as a friend. She's one of the most compassionate, professional, and committed public servants that I know. She's worked tirelessly in support of human rights and children's rights and has always upheld the highest standard of public service values and ethics. In my view, Emmanuelle Tremblay has been a breath of fresh air for CAPE. We elected her because we wanted to modernize our union. We knew that times had changed and CAPE was no longer benefiting from the conservative, socially disengaged negotiation position. Since taking up office, our president has been diligently implementing the platform upon which she was democratically elected, and doing so in continuous consultation with the membership through online voting and surveys. Which is why many of us were shocked to hear the allegations against her. And we now know, unfortunately, that this was nothing more than a vicious, slanderous political campaign spearheaded by a handful of people who oppose her progressive agenda. And what did we see during the investigation? We saw weeks upon weeks of inquiries. We saw the unnecessary waste of human and financial resources, $300,000 to be exact. We saw a really ugly social media campaign. I don't know if anyone tapped into this, but it was really unprofessional and ugly. And we saw an excellent president and her family suffer such a personal attack. And for what? Because a few people decided to take such a drastic measure instead of going towards debate, discussion, and potentially mediation. We even have the official petitioner who came forward, and I very much appreciate his apology and his honesty to basically say that he was wrong and he wished he hadn't gone down that route. But quite frankly, I'm appalled and disgusted by the whole situation. I'm very, very concerned that our Constitution and bylaws are so outdated to have allowed this to take place with so little evidence at the outset, but I'm happy to hear that everybody agrees and that we're looking to revise those. I'm also concerned that our president was suspended for 5 weeks and now has to go on a recall vote. But more than anything, I'm appalled that those that spearheaded this campaign with apparently no moral compass have been able to do so with seemingly no repercussions. This is totally unacceptable, and some of them are running to be on the National Executive Committee. So where do we go from here? How can we possibly rectify this wrong? First, it must start with openness, transparency, and fairness. Until all the related and relevant investigations have concluded and the results proactively shared with the entire membership, I don't feel that a vote should take place, if one has to take place at all, the recall vote. We need to obviously revise our constitution and bylaws, and we need to vote for those who are going to be constructive on the National Executive Committee. Anything less simply will not do, and I know that I'm not alone in my views.
Okay, thank you. Over to you.
Hi, Miranda Dick. I don't want to take this off track, but just to mention that if any members have questions about the targeted harassment that some of our members, myself included, have had to endure under this administration, if you look up the definition of bully, it's power over. That folder is just the start of it. So come to me. I'm very transparent. As for progressive agenda, I'm one of the people who voted for you. I was very excited to come and become more involved in CAPE. I loved the platform. I'm a very strong activist. Just to remind you that you were elected by 2%. So if you're talking about only 135 members who signed this petition, then we need to look at the people who actually voted to have you in. So I was obviously very deeply disappointed to find that we had a leader who has no regard for the rules. As a woman, personally, I find it pretty appalling that you use this as an excuse and say that it's a political attack because you're a woman, because you're a strong woman. That's absurd. It's an affront to our union. As a member of our local, as just a human being, the basic rights to workplace safety are not being adhered to in the CAPE office. How can we have a union president that doesn't respect that? You said that you never stop taking into account what members want. That's not what I want. I want to stand up proud and say, our union staff, the people who work in our office are actually treated with respect. So you can say what you want here, but we know the truth behind what's actually going on. And true strength is not anger. It's not aggressive. It's not abusing staff and then just concocting a story to tell.
Okay, I'm going to remind you guys, too, just of what we said earlier, is just to be careful to stick maybe to facts and be careful about making allegations that might be difficult to prove. So, and just be respectful, all right? Now, I believe that maybe, sir, that they were there before you, so if you don't mind, I will go ahead.
Merci. Bonsoir, mon nom est Florence.
Well, good evening. I'm Florence Pellet. So I work at Environment and Climate Change Canada. We're here with a president has gone through a intense smear campaign. When you look at the arguments that were put forward, well, it's based on the word of one single person against her, and it was judged that that person was right. So an intense smear campaign, not only formally through the frivolous petition, but also in the media, and she has got through this with a lot of dignity and courage. I'd like to applaud her for that. She's done extraordinary work. She's changed a lot of things since she's been president of our union. Despite all that, despite the fact that almost all the accusations were frivolous, she was imposed, and a penalty was imposed on her, and I think that the validity of that is debatable. I think that adding to that a revocation vote, well, it's obscene. You only have to look at what she's already gone through and what has been proven to be false. Strategically speaking, I think it's something which is debatable. We've spent enough money on this infighting, which is more like something you see in a schoolyard. It's not strategically appropriate because we're currently in the midst of important bargaining. I'd like to pick up on what my colleague has just said. So there was a penalty. Will there be any penalties imposed on those people who actually started this witch hunt, which have had us waste so much time?
À vous la parole, monsieur.
Hi, Kerry Max, Global Affairs Canada. I would like to express my profound disappointment regarding the actions of a portion of the NEC that appear to have allowed their political and personal grudges to undermine the credibility and professionalism of the union. I'm also astonished that while we have to live with the fact that the NEC imposed a severe sanction in the presence of the man who was trying to orchestrate the downfall because of legal advice they got that they couldn't boot him out if he didn't declare conflict of interest, that Tanis, who is clearly operating in an unbiased and professional manner, is being challenged to declare herself in terms of perceived conflict of interest. given that none of the individuals involved in this fiasco appear to have decided to resign in recognition of their unprofessional conduct, I would suggest that the entire NEC be given extensive training in conflict resolution and interpersonal communications, and I would beg them to come together to try to fix the mess that they created. Thank you.
Over to you, madam. Go ahead.
Thank you. Fernaz Berouz, Employment Social Development Canada. So this is my second AGM meeting. Can you guys guess which one my first one was? It wasn't very fun. So the last time we gathered here, members were shocked to hear about the complaints, the petition, and the investigation debacle. We were devastated to hear that our NEC was in fact not united, which, needless to say, is not in any of our best interests. And we were personally disgusted by the personal politics involved around the mess. As a member who read the letter from one of the co-complainants and the president, I'm very appreciative of the regret and remorse expressed for dragging members through the mud while we were left wondering, when are we going to get our new contract? So the vice president, who had co-led the complaint, when asked by a member at our last meeting if he would resign, and if the Sphere allegations were deemed unfounded, said that he would. We bore witness to this statement, but since the results of the investigation was released, we haven't received a letter from the VP. We haven't heard a peep at all. As a frustrated member who is seeking accountability and transparency from the NEC, I would like to know, or I would like to encourage a response from our vice president and the NEC on what the next steps are, if resignation is happening, whether it would be consulted in our best interest to hold elections all at once rather than going through the system again. And basically just a response, because I don't know what's going on in the NEC.
Okay. Thank you. I'll come back to you, madam, in a moment. Over to you, sir.
It seems that the people within CAPE that are against the...
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Could you introduce yourself? Yes.
Okay. I'm Fari Otari from Shared Services Canada.
Thank you.
It seems that the people opposing the progressive agenda that Emmanuel is leading will not stop at anything. So at first it was allegations against her improper behavior. Now it's against behavior against CAPE staff. Tomorrow, I don't know what they're going to bring. So we want this to stop, Emmanuel.
Okay. Thank you. Over to you, madam.
Stephanie Mentha, Local 512. I echo the remarks of members who have spoken. I have volunteered as corporate secretary on Local 512. I didn't have the full story. I have a fuller story today. I can't believe that we're unrepentingly going forward. I cannot believe this. It's unbelievable. I don't know how I could recruit other people to the local with this unreflective, without hearing from. I don't even want to give people a stage at this point, but it's going to be difficult. I think there is absolutely, we absolutely need conflict of interest training. We need to understand that the perception of conflict of interest is so damaging. The apology needs to be against individuals and against all of us as members who have been affronted. So I would just echo our colleague from Global Affairs and the individual who spoke before me, there has to be it has to be finished. And I don't know, I'm not interested in additional confrontation or whatever, but we have to have some kind of a closure on this, because I don't know how to kind of continue with such a low level of respect.
Thank you, madam. Over to you, sir.
Merci. Samuel Le Breton, je suis avec Service
Le Breton, I work for Service Canada. I don't want to deal with the details of what's happened. I just like to express my disappointment as a human being, as an economist, to see this type of behavior in an organization like ours, immature comments, insults, the ones you mentioned, referring to you as Hitler and Stalin. It's incredible that you're suggesting giving training to people really just to have common sense is very disappointing from professionals or from so-called professionals, because of the behavior that I've seen over the past few months is not professional at all. It's not human. I find it just disappointing. Thank you very much. André Picot, VP TR. I'd just like to say the following. Someone said that the NEC should take steps to bring back harmony to our organization. The NEC has already taken steps in that direction. I don't want to go into detail here. It's not the appropriate venue to do that. We're aware of the situation at the NEC. We've taken steps to restore harmony to CAPE, and all this will start next week. Comments have been made as well as to the fact that Emmanuel was accused of all sorts of things. Then there's the revocation vote now, and other people involved in the process. Well, they're not facing any penalties, any sanctions, but there are investigations ongoing on these people, and they will lead to a resolution pretty quickly, and then perhaps steps will be taken. So there are things that are being done by the NEC. We're not there just passively watching, observing. We're taking proactive action. Well, I'd just like to say that we're facing a situation where ordinary workers are being attacked. I would just like to ask all of you to grow up. I don't think we could really afford this constant bickering, dissent. I think we have to show maturity. We all need to work together, so do what you have to. If your agenda is a political career, well, you can do that elsewhere, not in our union. Any other comments or questions at this junction? Comments, rather, not questions.
Hi, my name is Anne Kurikshuk-Nemec. I'm on the NEC. I'm on the collective bargaining team. I'm vice president at StatCan 503. Every NEC member that's still here just are holding their breath because of what's been happening to all of us at the NEC table. I agree with a lot of the comments. I too can't believe how far this has gone and for how long it's gone. The reason why I can't say a lot of stuff to you is we're all on the NEC under threat of a lawsuit. Anytime anything we say or do is negative or perceived negatively by other people, we're getting complaints. There's a bylaw 5 complaint process, and there's more complaints coming. So we feel gagged. We can't say anything. We can't participate in open conversations with you. Part of the problem that I perceive members are having is we can't tell you everything that we know. Because of the rules of the organization, things are in camera because we're talking about particular people, staff members, privacy, etc. I would love to tell you everything, but we're not permitted. And on top of that, we're threatened with lawsuits of talking to anybody. And the stuff on social media, I agree with you, has gone way too far. But part of that is because we have no venue to express. We can't talk to you. I don't feel like I can represent my membership. I represent on the NEC. At the NEC, we represent all CAPE members. When I'm at StatCan, I only represent StatCan members. So we're dysfunctional in that way. And I must say the best thing that we've learned through this is what we have to do to fix things so that we have a voice, we can represent you adequately, that we're not under threat of lawsuit because somebody doesn't like what we say, because we cannot have full and frank conversations. Everything we do is translated, it's minuted, et cetera, et cetera. We're all trying to be adults here. And let me just finish up with saying, I don't disagree with a lot of what the Slade and Emmanuel want to do. I disagree with the way they're doing it. They're talking by themselves. They're not talking at the NEC table. They possibly are talking about things from the NEC table with people that are not eligible to listen to the information. Again, my chance to freely speak.
Okay,
I am
once
not
again,
trying to go beyond what is reasonable here. But at the end of the day, transparency, democracy is not happening the way I would expect it to happen. I'm sure if I could tell you everything, you would be shocked that it's not happening either. I hear you, and I'm very thankful that you showed up and you gave your opinions. I will certainly take it to heart. I would like to lay this to rest, but I'm sorry to tell you, there's a whole bunch more complaints coming, and we're not done yet. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Madam, over to you.
Maureen Collinston, as I think you're all aware from the earlier presentation with the resolutions, I'm a member of the NEC. I'm also a member of the collective bargaining team, and I have been since its inception in 2000, I'm going to say 13. It's been about 3 years. And during the course of, well, I guess since February when the petition was launched, there's been a lot of talk about how this has distracted from bargaining, where this is the reason that we don't have a collective agreement. And tonight, a statement was made, and I will quote, that the bargaining team's response to wanting to do a survey, amongst other things, was, why would we care about that in respect to the members' opinions? And I wouldn't typically take the liberty of speaking on behalf of the collective bargaining team, but I'm going to say two things to you. The first is that nobody on the collective bargaining team would ever say that about the members. We are there to represent the members. We have volunteered countless hours. We've volunteered our skills. Many of us have worked at the table, behind the scenes, on our own time in the evenings. And this is for the members. It's not about us as individuals. So to say that, why would we care about what the members think, is frankly ludicrous and a bit insulting to us and to the membership. The other thing that I want to say very clearly is that this has not distracted from negotiations. We don't have a contract because of TBS. And I think anybody that is following what's been going on with contract negotiations knows that to say that this has distracted from our ability to negotiate on behalf of the members and to reach a collective agreement is exceedingly disingenuous, if not outright false and fear-mongering. We're at the table, we're doing our best. When we go to the table in front of Treasury Board, we are presenting a united face, and we're doing the best work that we can do for the membership. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Doug Hager, ESDC. I just wanted to say that I think that what this whole process has done, this political process has done and accomplished, is that it's only undermined the integrity of CAPE. All that's been done by these complaints is that it's discouraged member action, something that we were starting to build, and it was starting to expand more and more. I've had members personally share with me that they would have gotten involved in our locals, in our committees, but they fear putting themselves out there for fear of harassment and reprisal, especially online and in other ways. And they didn't want to get dragged into it. CAPE is at a low point. I hope we can get over this and move forward. Let's keep building this union to respond to the challenges in the changing workplace. Let's continue to bring the progressive agenda. I want members to desire to get involved and be proud to be a CAPE member. Let's be professional, mature, and move forward.
Okay. What do you say?
I'd have to say my biggest concern is, from my understanding in the investigation report, that it was founded that Emmanuel had accessed real-time voting data and fed that information to someone who was actively participating in encouraging someone, one of her Slate colleagues. For me, that's my understanding of what the report said, and for me, that shows such a severe lapse in judgment. And I haven't seen any kind of admission and remorse for actually accessing real-time voting data as it was happening and then feeding that information to someone who is campaigning on behalf of this slate or this group of people. So for me, that's my biggest issue. I mean, if the person is capable of having such a severe lapse of judgment, what else can happen? I mean, and the Constitution says that the president can interpret the Constitution however he or she wishes. But the Constitution, I mean, that's such absolute power. And that's why one of the other accusations was not founded, based on my understanding of the report, that one of these accusations weren't founded because despite it saying you can't do something in the Constitution, the president can interpret the Constitution that says whatever. Well, if you're shaking your head, I'll read the words from the report. It says that it should be noted that Bylaw 12 is entitled Loans to Members and prohibits loans of monies or valuables to members or of CAPE or any other party. Article 9, Section 9.3 stipulates that it is the sole responsibility of the President to interpret the Constitution. So that's a quote from the report. You have time afterwards, sorry, Emmanuel. But so to me, that is a real issue. Have a nice night. Okay, have a good night. I sat through everything else quietly. So to me, but I mean, I think coming from StatsCan, where we respect the confidentiality and the integrity of voting and data and science to actually access the database and then give that to someone during an election campaign, I'm sorry, for me, that's the most reprehensible action possible.
Okay. All right. Over to you, sir.
Michael Donahue, Health Canada. I think most people here know who I am. I also suspect most people here have likely made up their minds. I wasn't sure if I was going to speak tonight, but after hearing some of the comments, I did want to say a few words, and I'll address this mostly to people who are watching online and may watch this on YouTube. I want to put a little more context around my position. It's been noted that I regret the petition. I regret this process. I regret all of this. I mean, this right now is what I regret. I don't want it to be perceived, some people may have perceived it, that I am a supporter of Emmanuel as president. I do not think Emmanuel is a great president. I have a lot of concerns with what she's done. But as much as I may dislike the way Emmanuel runs this union, I dislike everything that has happened in the last 8 months a heck of a lot more. And that is why I regret what has happened. I came forward thinking that this process would be over in a month. I was led to believe we'd have a resolution in 1 month, an investigation, a vote, and it would be done with. Instead, this has dragged on for 10 months. It's been brutal. I understand that it has been horrible for members on a lot of fronts. It's been horrible for Emmanuel. And this is not what I wanted. I'm sorry that we're here. But what happened in the past is in the past, and the issue that I am faced with, the issue that every member is faced with, is how do we move forward? And that's why I wrote a letter to the best of my ability to try and extend an olive branch to Emmanuel, also to members on the NEC, to say this situation sucks, we need to fix it, we need to do something to move forward and begin the healing process. And so when members vote, I would ask them to keep that in the front of their mind. What is the best way for this association to heal? I hoped my letter would start the process. What I've seen here tonight, what I've seen in some of the emails, what I've heard from different people, I mean, judge for yourselves if it sounds like this is a healing process or not. But this sucks. I know it sucks. We need to get over this. When you're voting, it shouldn't be about whether you like Emmanuel or you like her policies. It shouldn't be what you feel about those who've attacked her. It should be a simple question of, we've got another year before the next presidential election, before the next election for the NEC. What is the best way for you to cast your vote that's going to get this union through the next year as in the best way possible for our members? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Madam?
Short person issues.
Again, if you could introduce yourself,
I think
please.
I can move this thing down.
Yeah, it probably doesn't go down any further.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
All right. Oh, my God. All right. Jackie Tweedy from Health Canada. So I work in results and delivery. That's actually what we call deliverology. We don't call it deliverology. We call it results and delivery. So I'm all about performance measurement. I'm all about evaluation. I'm all about accountability and transparency. So I just want to do a short reality check. First of all, I know very, very clearly that the reason we don't have a collective agreement right now is because of the party with which the union is bargaining. Okay, so any aspersions that the situation is otherwise, not evidence-based, all right? Stick to the facts, and we will find our way forward. Fact, although some of the allegations were found to be without merit, one was. And the issue that was found to be with merit, and I quote, oh crap, I gotta put my glasses back on. Désolé. The perusal and sharing of ongoing results was improper and contrary to bylaw 3.15. This is fact. Whether or not there was another party to this, it doesn't change the fact that you demonstrated more than once terrible, unprofessional lapses in judgment that go to the heart of how this union needs to work together, all right? Other parties may have contributed, but you made those decisions. You're the leader. You need to be responsible and accountable for that, okay? So any type of sidestepping that issue is going to continue the problems going forward. And I'll note that I did not hear a vision from you earlier about how to move forward beyond some hand-wavy stuff, okay? Concrete steps to heal, concrete steps to take this union forward where it needs to go for its members, representing them, getting an agreement, doing the only job you really need to be doing, representing the members. Didn't hear that from you, okay?
Okay, carry on.
Final issue. Upset with the tenor and tone from others. I have heard it mirrored back, thrown back in people who volunteer their hours here. This is a room that has some serious groupthink going on. But if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. Or just stop it.
Okay.
And move forward.
Okay. Okay. All right. So maybe one more, and then we should maybe wrap up.
Juste pour finir en français.
Okay.
Let's finish in French. Be very, very short because we've heard a lot about the NEC. The NEC has an important role to play, of course. I'm not surprised to hear that we're mentioned several times. I'm a TR member of the NEC. For me, it's not a conflict within the NEC. It's not a conflict between us and our president. I think this is what some people think is happening. Some people on the NEC, sitting on the NEC, perhaps feel they're in conflict with the president. That's possible, but I think it's important to recognize that it's not a war, a battle between the NEC and the president. We've spent a lot of energy on this issue. On the basis of this, the start of all this was a petition and a complaints and everything that happened after that. The NEC didn't want this, and it wasn't something we initiated. Thank you. Well, look.
I'm going to invite Manuel to share some last thoughts, comments, reactions, and then there's that one motion that we need to do at the end. Puis après ça, on termine. Okay.
Merci à tous d'avoir eu.
Well, thanks to all of you for having the opportunity or taking the opportunity to speak this evening against or for me. I'd like to start by the end. Well, the facts that you described, Jackie, the investigation and the way the investigation was conducted, and what the report says. Well, I realized one day that I had access to the members' database. Well, not to the database, but I had access to part of the database which provided information on the vote that was ongoing. Now, discovering that,
I have 5 minutes, so remove the 45 seconds of that.
while I discovered that, when there was somebody in my office, the person who was my partner, my ally, my working colleague, a member of the management team at the office. And when I showed him I had access to it, he asked me to print something for him. And then he sent me an email 10 days later asking me to check whether the voting situation had changed. Now, that person who had said that no matter what the outcome of the investigation, he said that he would no longer be here at the end of the process. He's still here. I'd like to answer the allegation that I didn't put forward a vision. Right from the outset, I've never stopped saying what's important. What's important for me is to really place greater value on the role of locals, on boosting the presence of CAPE within the union movement that promotes labour rights and social justice. And in my opinion, I think these are very exciting projects for our association. In terms of trying to put the pieces back together at the NEC, well, for those of you who aren't aware of it, right from the outset of this crisis, I had offered mediation. I did that 5 times, and no one has agreed to take me up on my offer. At the invitation of Michael Donoghue, well, he suggested in his recommendations that we could perhaps drop the complaints against each other. I dropped my complaint against Michael Donoghue. I did that. I didn't withdraw all my complaints. That's true. I didn't. But I'm quite prepared to do that. Contrary to what some people have said, I've never threatened anybody with legal action. Quite the opposite. Today, I gave a radio interview on a francophone radio station where I was asked, why haven't you sued the people who have been insulting you online? Well, I'm not someone who holds grudges. It's not in my nature. I'm passionate. I can get angry, but I really become unangry very quickly as well. And people who say that they're afraid of legal proceedings, well, they won't come from me. I don't feel like getting involved in that. I don't feel like prolonging suffering any more than we have to. Well, yes, I've continually proposed mediation. I want to move forward. I even instructed my lawyer to talk to the CAPE Council to find a mediator for the NEC. So I hope that this will actually lead somewhere in the future. That's all I have to say.